Welcome to Fairytale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairytale Access. Today I'm really excited to introduce you to Phoenix Gray from Texas by Skype with her newest release, The Realm Between the Curse. It's crazy. It's like this radical interactive software adventure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, poor Will, he had a really bad day. This book was so well written. How did you come up with the theme?
Well, I like to play video games and I like fantasy. And a long time ago, I wrote an epic fantasy. And at the time, it just wasn't a really good time to publish it. But when I found out about Lit RPG, I was like, oh, I can combine two of the things I love the most and put together this really long fantasy I wrote with video games, which I like with the stats and everything.
I really like the way you laid it out. It taught me more about video games.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of stats. I kind of took stats from games that I like. There's also a lot of kind of Dungeons and Dragons elements to it as well. So I just kind of tried to mesh it all together as best I could.
Is this your first series?
Under Phoenix Gray, it is, but I've been writing full time for about 8 years now.
Oh, wow. This book's really good. I would have never known it was one of your first books.
Yeah, I put a lot of thought into it.
What about the information you brought in about neuroscientists and the development of the game, all that reality that's involved?
Yeah, I thought it would be an interesting concept to kind of meld like the medical community with video games because I haven't really seen that a whole lot in books. Usually it's just an entertainment aspect, and then people kind of get stuck in games. But I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if maybe the medical community used video games to heal things like brain damage and help coma patients and stuff like that?
Yeah, it also shows corporate greed.
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. I think they didn't want to axe the game because originally it didn't do very well. So now they're kind of trying to figure out a way to still use it, but they still want to take it to mass market. They're just also kind of experimenting on people to find ways to get above their competition.
I know, but instead of people getting better, it seems like they're sucking them into, an alternate reality.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the people that they do this on end up dying. So it's very under the radar type of thing where it's secret. Nobody knows what's going on with this except for the company itself because they make everybody sign like an NDA. So nobody is allowed to talk about it. The people that do survive it, nobody's allowed to talk about it.
Wow, that's kind of scary. So how long is this series?
The sixth book is going to be releasing in 2 months, and it's planned to be a 13-book series, but that's changed throughout me writing it. It was originally going to be 12 books, but it keeps getting longer and longer the more I write it. So
18 books in the series? That's cool.
12. Oh,
12.
sorry, 13. 13.
13. Oh, 13 is a good number.
Yeah, it might be longer, but we'll see.
So what's the new title of the newest release coming out?
It is called Never Ending Dungeon.
Same characters?
Yeah, some of the characters swap in and out, but definitely the same main character.
So tell me a little bit about how you develop the main characters.
So with Azure specifically, I wanted I wanted him to be someone that anybody could read his story and be like, wow, this could be me. I wanted him to come in. Of course, he comes in at first thinking that he's in a game, but then when he's stuck in there for so long and he's realizing he's not waking up from this game, he begins to realize that this might actually be real. So situations that would scare most people scare him, and he approaches everything timidly. So that's basically how I wanted to design him, as kind of like an everybody character. With characters like Uden, he is definitely more of the suspense character. You don't know if he's bad or good through most of the series. He's very very back and forth, but I definitely think he's one of the more fun characters in the series.
Does he ever make it out?
That's yet to be seen. That's yet to be seen.
It's such an exciting chase. I had so much fun reading it. It literally kept me up really late because I was like, oh, what's going to happen next? What's XP in gaming?
It's experience points. So basically, as Azure completes quests and he kills monsters, he gains experience to level him up. And when he levels up, he can kind of customize his character where he gets stronger. He'll get stronger naturally through the progression, but he also gets to pick what different ways to level himself up.
That's cool. So that's in regular gaming, right?
Yes, it's a very, very common theme in a lot of video games.
Yeah, I loved how all the points showed up in the book, the little graphs that you gave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have cooked. It's like, oh, that's a good skill to learn.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones, and as the series progresses, he gets more and more. So, and then I actually have to keep a spreadsheet to keep up with how he levels skills. So, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of me writing. Is I actually have a spreadsheet where I tally up how many experience points he's getting, how many times he uses any skill. So pretty much every time he does anything, it's tracked outside of the books, and that's how I come up with the stats eventually that you see the little boxes and everything.
Oh, that's great. I was going to ask you about that because it did seem like all the way through how the build up. I was like, how did she keep track of all of these different things going on, the different characters involved?
Yeah, all the characters also I have to keep track of, and it can be a lot sometimes. So basically, I will track things as I go through when I write, and then when I go back and do my first pass of edits, I will track everything again to make sure that everything is correct. But it's definitely a lot harder than writing in other genres because there is a lot to keep up with.
Definitely. What about this guy on the cover?
That is the Silver Nether. He's probably the big boss of this particular book that Azure faces, but definitely not the biggest boss of this main story arc, which ends in the next book. But yeah, he's just a kind of a big, oversized, gluttonous frog monster, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of cute on the cover, but the way the story unravels, it was like, oh.
Yeah.
But you still want to feel bad for him.
The Silver Nether. Yeah, he's just sitting there, but he was doing some not good things for the surrounding area, so he needed to go.
Wow. So how about the sneaky and untrustworthy characters? Are those people that you've met in real life?
Surprisingly, nobody in the series is based off of anyone I know in real life, which is kind of not normal for my writing. But as far as Uden goes, he definitely adds an interesting aspect to the story where, on one hand, he's doing these things where you think he's really good, but the other hand, he's saying some things that make you fear him quite a bit and not trust him. And also, he's got the whole racial thing going on where he's half monster, so that just immediately makes him like not the best type of character to trust.
Yeah, that was really well done, though. The whole story was really believable, and the characters were so well developed. It really drew you into the action.
Thank you.
I was, hoping there was a game to go with it because I think I could actually play this game.
There may eventually be. I have a bunch of projects in the works coming off of this. I'm actually working on a role-playing game that will go along with it right now, which will probably be releasing hopefully sometime next year. As far as a video game goes, it started, but that's kind of on the back burner right now. But that might be coming in the future as well.
Oh, that would be awesome. So would those games run along the same kind of instances that go on throughout the series?
Yes, I'm going to try to follow the series as best as I can through the games as well.
Oh, so if we've read the books, we'll have an extra edge?
Yes, for sure. Definitely for sure. Especially if the video game comes to fruition, you will. With the role-playing games, it's more open world, so it'll follow close to the same storyline, but players will get to, kind of go off and do their own thing as well.
That's so cool. How long have you been doing this?
I've been writing the series since it's been like about a year and a half, and I just started working on the role-playing game.
How long have you been playing video games?
Oh, since I was 10. It's been a very long time, maybe even younger than that. I remember playing my grandfather playing, setting up the old DOS computer for me to play on. So it was a long time ago.
That's funny. And how many levels can you achieve in the game, or does it just go on and on?
I haven't quite worked that out yet. In some of the books, Azure doesn't level up that much, and some he levels up pretty quickly. So as far as the game is going to go, I'm not sure how quickly players are actually going to be able to level yet. I'm still writing down the system right now. So once I get that down and play test it a few times, I'll have a better idea.
So can you remind me about some of the different levels that you go through besides, learning how to cook and learning how to use different weapons?
Yeah, there's also relationship leveling where it kind of gives Azure a good basis to tell how much the people around him trust him and how much he can count on them to have his back when he's in hard times. And then, of course, there's just general character leveling where he gets to kind of design his character in his own way to play to his strengths. And then there's the skills, which give him bonuses occasionally after he levels them so much.
Wow. So what other influences did you use to design the world?
So I've definitely used a lot of fantasy influences, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, stuff like that. Just general big fantasy medieval worlds that have a lot of open space, but also have a lot of, areas where there could be monsters and danger.
How does living in Texas influence your writing?
Not one bit, if I'm being completely honest. It really doesn't.
Wow. Except for the hot weather. Maybe.
Well, yeah, it's actually been kind of nasty lately. So it was real cold yesterday, the day before yesterday.
What's real cold for Texas?
Real cold for Texas is probably like 40s. It occasionally gets 30s, but I know that's not cold for anywhere else. But for me, I'm like freezing.
Yeah, it gets below 0 in New Hampshire, so.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
no,
that's
no,
not
no,
cold.
no.
That's like summer for us.
Oh, I wouldn't survive. I wouldn't survive.
What do you do in your free time?
In my free time, I play a lot of board games. Lately, I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO. But I host game nights at the local comic book store sometimes, where we'll play a variety of games like Fun Employed and Cards Against Humanity and stuff like that.
Is there specific characters you like to play and co-play?
Not well. Yeah, I usually play some type of a magic casting character. Usually, like damage per second is what I prefer to do. I'm not much of a healer, but I can get in there and heal every once in a while.
So when you're doing magic casting, do you actually have magic that you can do?
Well, yeah, like on Final Fantasy 14, there's a certain set of spells for my character's an arcanist, so there's a certain set of spells that I can use, and I can do like it's where you do debuffs on characters, well, on monsters, and kind of does a little bit of damage over time, and then you can stack it up with other spells and do even more damage.
Wow. That sounds fun, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Have you participated in different events to promote your books?
I actually have not yet, and I probably won't until the role playing game comes out, and then at that point I'll probably be setting up booths at conventions and stuff like that.
Nice. How do your fans influence the way you write your next chapters or the next book?
I do have a Facebook group for readers, but we don't really discuss a whole lot about what's going to happen next. I think mostly my readers are just kind of waiting to see what I'm going to come up with. I think they're always afraid that I'm going to kill off their favorite characters, because I do tend to kill off a lot of characters. So it's definitely not a safe series if you want to get attached to somebody.
Thanks for the warning. There are several people that you get attached to along the way, though, because they're really rich characters.
Yeah.
Aw. What about all the scenes? Where do you draw your inspiration for those? Like, the camping, the forest, the different quests that they go on.
A lot of it just sounds weird, but a lot of the story writes itself. So I'll usually have an outline of what I want to do, and then I'll kind of point the characters in that direction, and they will kind of come up with what they're going to do. And sometimes it's not always what I've planned. But of course, I've taken influences from a lot of the books that I've read, the games that I've played, life experiences with my own camping and my own skills and some of that stuff. And then I also do a lot of research into the things that I don't know. So it's kind of a big hodgepodge of everything altogether.
How far do you go to research different aspects of writing this? Because there's so much, and it's so realistic.
Mostly Google, and just taking things from games that I've played, or taking influence from games that I've played, memorable quests that I've gone on in some of these games. But yeah, mostly if it's something I don't know, like a lot of the stuff about the sword types in particular, and some combat styles, I definitely watch a lot of YouTube videos and read a lot of Google, website pages stuff.
But what about things like archery? Have you actually taken archery lessons?
I have taken archery lessons, and me and my boyfriend do go, and we shoot the bow every few months. So it's not something I do. I'm like really good at, but I know how to do it. So
no, but that really comes across in the way that you play out the scene. You're really good at being descriptive without overdoing it.
Yeah. I have read a lot of like really lengthy battle scenes, and I like them, but I don't think I'm that great at writing them. So it's kind of a play to your strengths. And I mean, I know enough to be able to write them, but I definitely don't go into a ton of depth in them. But yeah, I do know enough to at least get through them.
I was really fascinated with the whole book. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Yeah, I've been excited writing the whole series. I love writing it. It's definitely my favorite thing that I've ever written. So writing it is an adventure for me. I mean, I do sometimes I don't even know the outcome of what's going to happen, and that makes it a lot more fun for me.
Really, you don't know the outcome?
Yeah, so some things that happen, I actually roll a dice, and whatever the dice lands on, that's what's going to happen. I'll set a set of numbers. I'm like, he's going to either do this successfully or he's going to fail. And sometimes when I had written that he succeeded, I rolled that he failed, so he failed, and it gets written in, and I have to adapt to writing that. So it's kind of fun.
That's great. You're making it like a challenge for yourself.
Yeah, it's kind of it definitely is sometimes. Definitely sometimes.
That's amazing. What other influences are there out there? Or what are some favorite things that you do that we might see along the way in the series?
Favorite things that I do. Definitely magic is a big thing in the series. Spells, getting more spells. Udin in particular his big aspiration is to be a grandmaster mage, and to do that you have to learn a lot of spells, and it's actually hard to get spells in the series. So that's definitely something that is going to get focused on a lot. Um, yeah, I'd say that's probably the main thing.
Wow. And you said altogether you've been writing for 8 years?
Yes, full time for 8 years.
And how long does each book in this series take?
It takes me about 3 months to write a book in the series.
Only 3 months?
It's a full time job.
But it's almost 300 pages. I don't think I can write
Yeah,
300 sentences in 3 months.
I write really fast. When I do manage to write, I can usually do the most I've ever written in one day was 12,000 words, which is a lot. So, and the books in the series are about 100,000 words each. So, so usually I try to put in on full writing days, I try to get in about 5,000 words. And then, of course, there's editing time and everything like that, too. So before my book goes to my editor, I also go through and edit it once. So
Wow. Did you go to college for English?
I did not, surprisingly.
You didn't?
I
You're,
did not.
it's so well written. I would have thought you at least went to college for it. It's incredibly well written.
Oh, thank you.
You must have been great at it in high school.
I have always wanted to be an author. I actually wrote my first full length novel when I was 12 years old. They say your first million words aren't good, and that's true. But I had a lot of practice before I got to this point. So I've been writing novels since I was 12. So it's always something I've loved.
That's fantastic. What were some of your favorite books growing up?
Growing up, I read a lot of Anne Rice. She was definitely my favorite. The Vampire Chronicles. I've also, of course, read The Lord of the Rings. I read a lot of Shakespeare. I like Shakespeare and a lot of Greek mythology. I've also had an interest in.
Wow, you can definitely see how it's influenced you in your work today.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, thank you for sharing so much about how you created this amazing adventure.
Oh, thank you for having me and being interested.
Oh, my pleasure. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
All right. Until next time, keep asking questions. And if you want a really great adventure that follows all the rules of gaming, The Realm Between has got to be one of the best series about it. You'll really enjoy it.